The studio lights of a bustling New York set gleamed down on the polished stage of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. The audience, already buzzing with anticipation, knew this episode would be different. Meghan Markle, former actress, Duchess of Sussex, and one of the most polarizing figures in the modern media landscape, was about to appear alongside Andy Cohen for what had been billed as a fun, candid conversation. But tension lingered in the air. Meghan had been making rounds on American talk shows, determined to redefine her image after months of negative press. For her, every public appearance mattered, every word carried weight. Andy Cohen, however, was not known for pulling punches. His interviews were often playful but sharp, sprinkled with tough questions that could push even the most media-savvy celebrity off balance. As the cameras rolled, Meghan entered, poised and radiant in a sleek navy dress. The audience erupted in applause. Andy greeted her with his signature smile, but the gleam in his eyes carried a mischievous edge. "Meghan, welcome," he began. "We've had A-listers, reality stars, even politicians here, but I think you might be the first Duchess. Or, are you still a Duchess?" The crowd chuckled lightly, but Meghan's smile tightened. "Technically, yes," she replied smoothly. "But I prefer to just go by Meghan." Andy leaned forward. "Fair enough. But don't you think the public gets confused? You and Harry talk about stepping away from the royal life, yet you still use titles, give interviews about the family, and, well, let's be honest, the public eats it up. Isn't that a bit contradictory?" The audience let out a collective, "ooh," sensing the first spark. Meghan straightened her posture. "I think people misunderstand. Harry and I stepped back to protect our family's well-being. We never asked to be stripped of titles, but we also never wanted to be defined solely by them. We've been trying to create our own path." Andy smirked. "But that path happens to include million-dollar Netflix deals, Spotify podcasts, and very public documentaries about the very institution you claim to want privacy from. Isn't it fair for people to say, you're still capitalizing on the monarchy?" The crowd's laughter and gasps filled the room. Meghan's jaw tightened. "I find that unfair, Andy. Sharing our truth isn't capitalizing. It's correcting decades of misinformation. If people profit off our pain, why shouldn't we have the right to tell our side?" Andy raised his brows, clearly enjoying the rising tension. "Sure, but your critics argue you've built a brand out of criticizing the royal family, while still leaning on your royal connection. Without that, would the world still care about Meghan Markle?" The audience murmured. Meghan's eyes flashed with anger. She opened her mouth, but Andy cut her off, adding fuel, "And let's not forget, you weren't exactly a global superstar before marrying Harry. Suits was popular, sure, but not royalty popular. Do you think you'd be sitting here right now if not for Prince Harry?" That was the moment the temperature in the room shifted. Meghan leaned forward, her voice low and sharp. "Andy, I built a career long before Harry came into my life. I worked hard, I paid my own bills, I hustled in Hollywood without connections. Don't reduce me to someone's wife. That's the exact misogyny I've been fighting against." The crowd applauded, but Andy wasn't backing down. He pressed further. "But Meghan, isn't that convenient? You talk about feminism and independence, but the truth is, you married into one of the most famous families in the world, and now everything you do is tied to that. Isn't that the definition of hypocrisy?" Meghan's face flushed. Her calm exterior cracked. "What's hypocritical," she snapped, "is pretending women can't have both, a career and a family, independence and marriage. If I had married a lawyer instead of a prince, no one would question whether my success was earned. You only question it because of your obsession with the monarchy." The audience clapped again, some cheering, others shifting uneasily. Andy's grin widened. He thrived on drama, but this was escalating beyond playful banter. The producers, watching from the wings, exchanged nervous glances. Meghan's PR team, seated in the audience, looked pale. Andy decided to push one step further. "So tell me then, Meghan, if you're so independent, why do you and Harry keep using your royal story as a crutch? Why not just stop talking about them altogether and stand on your own 2 feet?" That was the breaking point. Meghan slammed her hand on the armrest of her chair. "Because it's my story too," she shouted. "I lived it. I endured it. And I will not be silenced just because it makes people uncomfortable. You don't get to tell me when my truth becomes irrelevant." The studio went silent. Even Andy was momentarily stunned. Then Meghan stood abruptly, her microphone still clipped, her voice ringing out. "I came here for an honest conversation, not to be insulted and demeaned on live television. If this is how you treat your guests, Andy, then I'm done." Gasps rippled through the audience as Meghan stormed off the stage, heels clicking sharply against the studio floor. The cameras caught every second, the Duchess of Sussex walking out, head held high, refusing to look back. The producers scrambled to cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Meghan Markle had just walked out on Andy Cohen, and the internet was about to explode. The commercial break lasted longer than usual. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. Andy sat back in his chair, sipping water with an almost smug smile, while producers debated whether Meghan would return. Her team was frantically trying to calm her down in the green room, but Meghan's face was flushed, her hands trembling with frustration. "This was a setup," she hissed at her publicist. "He wanted a fight, and he got one. I'm not going back out there." Her publicist pleaded. "Meghan, walking off will dominate the headlines. If you return calmly, you can regain control of the narrative." But Meghan shook her head. "No, I won't let him twist me into soundbites. I'm not going to sit there and let him belittle everything I've worked for." Meanwhile, Andy was already addressing the audience when the cameras came back on. "Well," he chuckled, "that was unexpected. I guess not everyone appreciates a little tough love. But hey, that's live television, folks." The audience laughed nervously, but social media was already ablaze. Within minutes, clips of Meghan's fiery exit flooded Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Hashtags like #Meghan storms off and #AndyVs Meghan trended worldwide. Some viewers sided with Meghan, good for her. Andy Cohen was rude and dismissive. She doesn't need to put up with that. Others mocked her, she wanted attention and couldn't handle the heat. Classic Meghan. By the next morning, major outlets were running headlines. Meghan Markle walks out of live TV interview after heated clash with Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen pushes Duchess too far, explosive argument goes viral. Royal drama moves to Bravo, Meghan vs. Andy shocks viewers. In London, British tabloids had a field day. One paper splashed across its front page, "Diva Duchess meltdown, again." But in California, Meghan defended herself. In a statement released through her spokesperson, she declared, "I refuse to sit quietly while being reduced to a caricature. Women should never be forced to apologize for owning their voice." What happened on Andy Cohen's show proves exactly why it is so difficult for women to speak their truth in the media. Her words reignited debate worldwide. Supporters hailed her as brave, critics accused her of playing victim. Even celebrities weighed in. Some applauded her for standing up for herself, while others teased her inability to handle basic tough questions. Days later, Andy Cohen addressed the controversy on his own podcast. "Listen, Meghan's a fascinating person, but she's also very guarded. I wasn't trying to attack her, I was trying to get past the polished answers. If she took it the wrong way, that's unfortunate, but that's the risk of live TV. You've got to roll with the punches." But Meghan wasn't rolling with anything. Instead, she used the moment to amplify her platform. She appeared days later at a women's leadership summit, where she received a standing ovation after saying, "Walking away from that stage wasn't weakness. It was strength. We teach our daughters to use their voice, yet when they do, the world calls them difficult. Well, I'd rather be difficult than silenced." The crowd roared. And just like that, what began as an embarrassing walk-off transformed into another chapter in Meghan Markle's ongoing saga of reinvention. Some saw a fragile celebrity cracking under pressure. Others saw a woman refusing to be boxed in. But one thing was certain. Meghan Markle and Andy Cohen's explosive argument would be remembered as one of live television's most shocking moments, an unforgettable clash of ego, truth, and power, broadcast for the whole world to dissect.